Hi guys, Darth Deuce here, back on their action figure. Well, actually doing an overview, but review. It is taking a look at some more Mcfarlane Toys figures this time. It is the new Mcfarlane Toys Warhammer 40K Darktide wave from the characters based on characters that appear from the new Darktide game that's coming out soon. Or maybe by the time this video comes out, the game might already be out. I can't remember what the release date is. I'm pretty sure it's soon. But yeah, new Warhammer 40K figures from Mcfarlane Toys is always exciting. I think it is one of the best bang for your buck normal retail figure lines that's currently out there on the shelves. The most, if not all, of the figures are extremely well worth the money, especially the Space Marine figures. You get a lot of plastic for your dollar, especially compared to other lines that are currently out there on the shelves. So yeah, but I've been really excited for these figures. Not that I've been keeping up with the video game so much, but that we're finally, well, not finally, but we're getting some more characters that are steering away a bit from the Space Marines. Don't get me wrong, the Space Marines are absolutely incredible figures. I love getting the Space Marine figures, and I'll always welcome getting some more variants of those Space Marines. But I've definitely been excited that we are finally getting some different characters, namely infantry characters that aren't these demigods, super soldiers, the more standard rank and file infantry. And this time we have a couple members of the Astra Militarum as well as some traders of the Forces of Chaos, which is super cool. So yeah, three figures we have on the right, the Acadian Veteran Guardsman. On the left is the Trader Guard or Chaos Guardsman, and then in the back we have a Mega Fig being the Ogren. So let's take a look at these figures. We will go with the Trader Guard first, I guess, because he's the only one of the Chaos. So before I move these guys out of the way, here you can kind of see the scale between these three figures, and you can mainly for seeing how big the Ogren is, a pretty decently sized Mega Fig. Definitely bigger than a standard release. He towers over these guys. He's definitely a lot bulkier and a lot heftier as well. But we'll talk more about him in a few moments. We'll get these guys out of the way and take a closer look at the Trader Guardsman. Now, the Trader Guardsman, he reuses, or him and the Veteran Guardsman, I believe, share the same legs, same lower body. But aside from that, he's all new sculpt. And one of the highlights of this figure for sure is the head sculpt, which I think looks absolutely incredible. And now, full disclosure, I'm a very, very casual Warhammer 40k fan. I've only recently kind of gotten into some of the lore, and most of my exposure to them is from the Dawn of War games and the 40k Space Marine game. So I don't know a ton of stuff, and if I say things wrong or call things the wrong thing or whatever, you'll have to forgive me for that. I'm definitely not very knowledgeable. But yeah, absolutely badass line, and like I said, I love the face. If I can get it to... like the zombification of it. He's corrupted by chaos. I think that's really cool. Missing his nose, he's got gnarled teeth and wrinkled skin and whited out eyes and dark circles around the eyes and all the kind of almost rotting, very wrinkly skin. It looks very, very cool. I really like that a lot. Looks very sinister, honestly. Very corrupted, which is how it's supposed to be. And then what I like about the design of the character is that while he's wearing kind of futurist militaristic sort of armor with all the spikes and chaos elements to it, it still gives it kind of like this almost medieval look as well, even though it's supposed to be a lot farther in the future, which I think is super cool. The helmet looks really good. It reminds me of the AT-AT drivers from Star Wars. But I love the plume he's got here. And then all the spikes look really good. And the shoulder spikes look great as well. The shoulder pads are asymmetrical. This one's got some chains hanging off it, which looks nice. And the gauntlets with their spikies. And the spikes are actually relatively sharp. They are a softer plastic, but they still got a point to them, so I guess you might want to be careful of that. He's not too much of a pain to handle, but just to keep in mind. It's got I think this is a symbol for chaos there on the chest plate. And he's got like this bandolier, some pouches look good. He's got some grenades hanging off. I do wish they would have painted the actual grenade part of the grenade. They just went with a straight up brown for the entire belt and bandolier aside from the belt buckle and some straps or belt loops. It makes it look a little on the cheap side. These probably aren't supposed to be just one color, so it would have been nice if they would have painted that. But not a big deal. I do like the detail regardless. I always like when soldier figures have gear and other weapons hung and stored on their person. Looks pretty good. The sculpted texture of his clothing is also pretty nice. You might be able to tell there. That looks really good. And then on the legs here, you got some decent detail for simulating the fabric of the clothing. He's got some pouches which aren't really painted a different color from the pants, which is a little unfortunate. They kind of, again, look unpainted and incomplete, which is not great, I'll be honest, but the sculpt is nice. And then you do have some paint for the actual greaves and knee guards, which look pretty good. You got the straps there, and then the boots, some laces. And yeah, not a whole lot else to say. It's a really, really cool looking figure. Definitely its biggest highlight for sure. In terms of articulation, not bad, but there is some limitations that are kind of annoying. It does have a good head joint though, can look down quite a bit. Looks up further than you'd think. This helmet is soft plastic, so it will move out of the way, but you do want to be careful of warping it. You can pivot it a lot, yeah, it wants to pivot a lot, but then it kind of moves back into place. You can't pivot it a bit, and then you get your rotation. The shoulders, they do have this shifting joint there, so you do get a bit of butterfly motion and rotation there. You can hinge them up. The shoulder pads are soft plastic, so they will move up a bit out of the way, go about 90. A swivel cut at the bicep here, or up here at the shoulder rather, which is pretty nice. Double hinges at the elbows, which move really well, as you can see. And then the standard Mcfarlane styles wrist swivel and hinge, where you can kind of get them going up and down, or vertical or horizontal hinge, whatever you want to do with that. So that's good. Torso joint, which goes back a lot. Actually, there's two joints at the waist and at the diaphragm or at the torso there, and it crunches forward a decent amount as well. Actually, so that's really good. Pivots okay, and rotates mainly at the top portion, which is perfectly fine. The hindrance is going to be at the hips, where you have this plastic lower tunic, which doesn't have any cuts in it and is also a fairly stiff plastic. And you also have that kind of underweary sort of piece that they usually put in Mcfarlane toy figures, so you really can't get the leg too far up. That's about as far as you're going to get it, and I had to push fairly hard to get that to go up. That's as far as it's going to go. It's not really going to go back. The spread is about as far as that's about as far as you're going to get. Oops, turn off my light. That's about as far as you're going to get, which isn't the greatest. A little bit of rotation, but not much. Double hinge knees move pretty good. No boot cut, which is a little unfortunate because they definitely could have easily incorporated that. Hinge just goes up, down, pivot, a pretty good pivot actually, and then boot hinge, or toe hinge rather, which this one almost looks like it wants to break off. These are really tight, these toe hinges. Yeah, these don't move very well either. So yeah, there are definitely some articulation issues. Nothing too major, but you're not going to get things like kneeling poses and whatnot with this figure, which might be a bit of a problem. It's definitely something to keep in mind. He won't be able to do everything you're probably going to want to do with this figure, which is a bit unfortunate. In terms of accessories, he comes with the standard display base that all the figures come with. So I'm not going to keep showing this, but they all come with this. Display base is nice and is fairly helpful for these figures. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that unless I'm not pushing down hard enough, but I did put a fair amount of force, is that they didn't actually drill the hole for the holes in the boots far enough for the veteran guard or the trader guard, so they don't actually go all the way flush onto the stand. If you can see that, they don't go all the way, which is kind of annoying. Guys, these can also be, the hinges and the ankles are weird. Sometimes it's kind of difficult to get them to stand properly. There's that, and then the only other thing he comes with is a las rifle, I'm not entirely sure how you're supposed to say it. But this is a nice accessory, standard infantry sort of gun. Sculpt, nothing too crazy detail-wise, but it does look nice. You do have that chaos symbol there. Has some silver paint and some black here. Would be nice to get some weathering on this. It probably wouldn't look clean. It'd be seeing some battles, but he holds it really well. Really well. Like, you can get him holding it up, and that looks really good. You can get really good natural looking aiming poses. The left hand is sculpted specifically wide enough to be able to hold the rifle with no issues, and the hinges and the articulation works so super well. Like, that's a really good rifle aiming pose. There are so many figures at this price range that can't get that right. So that's really nice to see. And then you can also just have them like just hold it at attention or whatever. So you can do a lot of stuff with that, and I think that's awesome. Always like when rifle wielding characters can actually hold their rifles correctly in shooting poses. So that's really good. But not much else to say about him. We're going to move on to the veteran guard. Take them off the base. The bases, they don't stand on it good. Take a look at the veteran guard. Like I said, the legs are pretty much exactly the same, so we'll actually start there. The only difference is there's a bit of a lighter color to the cloth, and the armor is a lighter green, which looks good. And then the rest is new. You do have nicely painted belt buckle. He's got the same issue with his straps. He's got these straps here. You've got these different gear, but they're all in the same color as the mold. They didn't paint them except for the belt buckle, so it makes them look a bit cheap. I hate using the term toy-like because these are toys, but yeah, a bit toyish. It would be nice if they painted some of these, even if they just made them like black or something, just differentiate them from the strap color and the pouch colors, but not a big deal, but something to keep in mind. Torso armor looks really nice. I like the symbol there in silver, and you got some paint for the chains there. Armor looks good, some little nicks and whatnot sculpted in, which looks nice. Got a white stripe there, which might mean something, I don't know. And then the head sculpt I really like. He's got the guardsman helmet on. Nice silver logo there on the front. He's got some goggles and a gas mask on there, which for the most part looks pretty good. And there's a little bit of skin peeking out as well, which I don't really like the tone of the skin. It looks kind of terrible, but there's not a lot of it there, so it's not a big deal. And looks pretty cool. It's a very cool looking figure. Articulation is pretty much exactly the same as the guardsman, or the other trader guards, so I'm not going to go over it fully, but he can go out with these arms. The shoulder pads are of softer plastic and will move out of the way, which is good. One cool thing is they actually did give these straps here some slack, as you can see, so you can actually still arch his back and not have this restrict it so much, which is cool. He doesn't have quite as well. He has about the same amount of crunching back forward, maybe a little less, but you still get pretty much that same articulation. You can still twist it pretty good because of that slack they gave to the straps, which is really nice. And then the leg articulation is the same, except because he doesn't have that waist lower tunic piece, you can get his legs kicked up a bit higher. Not by much though, but you can kick them up a bit higher. And they definitely spread a lot more. So that's nice as well. So definitely some better articulation. And very cool looking. In terms of accessories for him, again, you get the display base. You also get a las pistol, which is very cool. Pretty simple sculpt, I'll be honest, but got some gunmetal and silver paint on there. And he has trigger fingers on both hands, so you can put them in either hand you want. I do like putting it in his left hand for his offhand weapon, but that's really cool, and that looks really good. He holds it well, no issues. I do kind of wish he had a holster so you could holster it and store it on him if you wanted to, but not a big deal. And then he also comes with a chainsword, which is a new sculpt. Looks good. It's sculpted and scaled to be a bit more in scale with him, so it's a bit smaller than the Space Marine chainswords that we've gotten. Mostly this gunmetal paint, but we do have a bit of silver for the teeth of the blade, which is cool. And some nice sculpted detail along with the symbol of, I believe, the symbol of the Astra Militarum, which is very nice. And again, you can hold that in either of his hands. I like putting it in his right hand for his main weapon, and he grips it pretty well. And it looks pretty good. So another really solid figure. I do hope soon we'll get maybe some just standard, Imperial Guardsmen, and then maybe he can be like the squad leader and have a few Imperial Guardsmen behind him. That would be nice. I hope they do that soon. I don't see why not. They could probably reuse most of this figure to do that. But yeah, I really like this one as well. So lastly, we have the Mega Fig. We have the Mega Fig Ogryn, which, if you're not familiar with Warhammer and wondering why he's a much bigger human, my limited knowledge is these Ogryn come from a different planet that have a lot higher of a gravity and a lot harsher conditions on their planet. So they ended up adapting to that situation, and their bodies became much larger, much physically stronger, but at the cost of having a lot simpler intelligence. And very cool figure. Got this for a good price. Also, for whatever reason, Amazon, I got all of these figures from Amazon Canada, and the only one I actually paid full price for was the Trader Guard. For some reason, they had the Veteran, and I think still do as of this video, for $14.99, which is like half the price. And then they had the Ogren for $32.99, which is less than a standard Black Series figure for a figure this big and detailed, which is pretty crazy. I don't know why they have those figures so cheap. I'm not complaining though, so yeah. But what he comes with, again, come with the display base they all come with. Kind of pointless for this figure. He's got large flat feet. He stands fine, doesn't really need it, but you do get that. And you also get this big Ripper gun, I believe it's called. This big automatic shotgun made for the Ogren to use. Again, simple but decent sculpt. Some good paint apps. You got the gray and like this lighter greenish gray or whatever. He's got the foregrip there. You got this little bayonet blade on it, which is super cool. And I'll show that in his hand later, but he does hold it pretty well. The Ogren himself looks really nice. I'm a pretty big fan of this head sculpt. It looks really good. I like how he's got kind of this grimace on the go, and I like how a bunch of the Mcfarlane sculpts, they actually are showing some emotion, different emotions in their sculpts. And I think this one looks really good. It's got, I believe, again, the Astra Militarum symbol there tattooed onto his forehead, which aside from being just slightly off kilter for me, looks really good. And the eye paint, the skin paint, they put a bit of a blush to his cheeks, as well as the teeth and the lips are painted all really nicely. The armor looks good as well. No real weathering, but it is sculpted really nicely and has all these little different dings and scuffs sculpted onto it. Got some asymmetrical shoulder pads, Giron dumbbell joints. You got 7.3-7. I don't know what that means, but that's printed on there really nicely. Got this logo here, which I believe is the logo for the Inquisition, which is pretty cool. Got this nice strap. The sculpted detail of the texture looks really nice. The painted buckle's a nice touch as well. He's got this undershirt, which has a bit of wear and tear sculpted to it as well. The skin and proportions of the musculature, I think, looks really nice. Some different veins and muscles sculpted look really good. The back, that same strap carries over. Another painted buckle. You got a painted chain there on his belt. Some various pouches. The Astra Militarum logo there in white again, which I think looks really clean. And then you got this gold buckle, which also looks really cool. His pants, very nice sculpted texture detail. And you have a bit of a camo pattern painted on there, which I think looks nice and subtle. And then you got some big boots with the armor on the shins and the big metal reinforced toes and flat feet. And some straps there and whatnot. So again, very cool looking figure, very well sculpted. The paint that is applied is painted really nicely. Could it use more paint? Yeah, I think so. Definitely some weathering would have been nice, but and some other little smaller details. Overall looks pretty good. Also, one thing I forgot to mention is on the arms, he does have like these kill tallies. I would assume tattooed there on the arm. On this arm, it's like some nicely sculpted armor. And on this hand, he actually has these bladed knuckles, which is pretty cool. I will have to take the hot water to this. This one was warped out of the packaging, but aside from that, that's very cool detail as well. Articulation for him is a little more limited than the other two, which I guess would be expected because of the character design. But he does have a joint in the neck. You can look down, actually a decent amount. Can't really look up. Rotates about that far, and then does have a bit of a pivot. Hinges at the shoulders move about 90, so that's pretty good. I did pop out this arm the first time I moved it that far, so they can pop out, but they pop back in easily enough. They rotate, and there's not really much of a butterfly there. Single hinge in the elbow, which moves full 90. I believe it's the same on this arm as well. Yeah, pretty much. And then rotation there. Then you have a rotation at the wrist as well as in and out hinge only. There is a torso joint in there. You can get rotation, but you're not really going to get up or down movement. It's not moving. Too much going on, it's not moving. Hip joints, they move out decently, honestly. You're not going to get a ton of kick. This whole underwear, the whole diaper situation doesn't look bad, but it definitely does do some hindering in the articulation department. You're only kicking out that far. Goes back a little bit. Not really any rotation. There is a single hinge in the knee, which is really friggin' tight. Like, really tight. I have to take this off camera to get it to bend. And the knee joint is not good, I'll be honest. It doesn't bend very far, especially for how tight it is. I don't know what's going on there. So that's a bit unfortunate, because they definitely probably could have engineered a bit better articulation there. And then there is a hinge at the ankle that barely goes up. It does go down quite a bit. You can get it down that far. It's not too bad. This toe joint keeps moving. Pivot is okay. Not great, actually. It's an okay pivot, not terrible, but not great. And you get this toe bend that's really awkward looking and pretty ugly, so I don't really know why they even bothered. But yeah, articulation's just okay. It's not a super like crazy articulated figure, but I don't think these guys are doing any crazy acrobatics. I kind of just need him to stand there, look intimidating, hold his gun, and then that's all I really need him to do. Speaking of the gun, put it in his hand real quick. Pretty easy to do. The hands hold it really well because the fingers are actually quite stiff. But it's easy enough to get the gun in his hand. And then he can hold the other side for the foregrip with the other hand with pretty decent. It's a little tricky getting the gun into his hand, especially the foregrip. The hand's pretty tight, and the hinge joint isn't exactly the best when it comes to which way you want him to hold it. But you can get it. And it looks pretty good. Obviously, very intimidating. Big guy with big gun. You know, don't want to run into him on the battlefield. But yeah, that's really cool. So pretty much, lastly, all I want to do is some really quick size comparisons with some other figures. So there's the guardsmen, 2 different guardsmen. They're about the same height. And here they are with a Space Marine Hellblaster. So I do like that they are shorter than the Space Marines. However, I do believe the scale here is still pretty incorrect. I believe these guys should still be a lot shorter. From what I've seen from cinematics and whatnot, the a normal human is a lot smaller than a Space Marine. So they should be still quite a bit smaller. It doesn't bother me too much, but it might bother some other people who maybe really, really care about the scale. This might not work for you. Just for fun as well, here's the recently released Chaos Space Marine, which I think is going to go very well with this guy. I don't have him standing straight up, but he's even shorter. So again, it doesn't exactly work scale-wise, but it doesn't personally bother me too much. But like I said, I'm pretty casual. Oh, and then I'll move these guys real quick, and we can take a look at the Ogryn and the Space Marine. Now this scale might be a bit closer. The Ogryn is a bit bigger, but not by a huge margin. I feel like the Ogryn should probably be a bit bigger than the Space Marine, but again, I could be wrong. I'm sure someone can let me know about that. But yeah, that's how they scale, if you're curious. So overall, a really cool set of 3 figures. There are artist proof of all of these figures as well. Some of them have some different sculpted bits. I don't buy the artist proof figures, so because I'm not going to paint them. But yeah, I really like these figures a lot. It's really awesome to to get some more characters who aren't Space Marines, and to get some of the more common infantry, some army builders per se. And I hope they do more of these. I'd like to get some more versions of the Trader Guardsmen. I'd like to get some more just standard guardsmen, and just maybe some other characters that they could do. I'd love to see some Mechanicus characters made into figures as well, and I think that'd be right up Mcfarlane's wheelhouse. So maybe we'll see. Excuse me. Maybe we'll see those. Maybe we won't. I don't know. What I do know is this is a really cool set of figures. The scale doesn't bother you, and you can get around some of the articulation hindrances. And you're a Warhammer 40K fan, or just like cool futuristic military looking dudes, and I would highly recommend picking up these figures. They're very cool and really good value for the money, especially with all the other lines that are there right now. I think Mcfarlane's put out some really good stuff. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. This video's gone on much long enough. So let me know what you think down in the comments below, and I'll see you all in the next one.